Typically, feats are taken to enhance the power and roleplay capabilities of your character, and for the most part, tend to synergize well with your character's class abilities or preferred playstyle. But occasionally, feats can also oftentimes combo with each other in a more general fashion to great effect, which is what will be covered in today's video. There are, however, some restrictions on how some of these feats can be obtained, which might limit the viability of some of these feat combos, depending on the campaign setting or the character you're playing. With that out of the way, let's get started. And at number 10, we have Charger and the mobile feats. Charger allows you to use your bonus action to make a melee weapon attack, or take the shove action against a creature if you use your action to dash. On top of that, if you happen to move at least 10 feet in a straight line immediately before using your bonus action to either attack or shove a creature using this feat, your attack gains a +5 to its damage roll, or if you push the target up to 10 feet away from you, depending on which of the two actions you perform. As for the mobile feat, it grants you a flat +10 bonus to your speed, allows you to ignore difficult terrain whenever you use the dash action, and if you make a melee attack against a creature, you no longer provoke opportunity attacks from the creature for the rest of the turn, regardless of whether or not you hit them. These two feats combined give you an excellent way to play a hit and run style character by taking advantage of both the extra mobility provided by mobile and the ability to outright avoid opportunity attacks when making your bonus action attack charger. Not only that, but the extra movement speed makes it easier to position yourself to move in a straight line, making it even easier to pull off a charger when you need it. This combo can work extremely well for a rogue, since rogues only get one attack per turn anyway, allowing them to quickly run in, poke an enemy with their rapier, and then run to safety without fear of being attacked right back, all while squeezing out a little bit of extra damage on top of their sneak attack damage. But the best use of this combo is for your marshals to close the gap more easily between them and the ranged creature, while also allowing them to dish out some punishment. For instance, a raging barbarian with a 40 feet default movement speed, due to their fast movement feature granting them a +10 bonus to the movement while wearing heavy armor, might have a hard time reaching a creature that's 80 feet away from them if they have no other targets within their movement range. In this instance, the barbarian would have to use their action in order to dash, but by the time they reach their destination, they wouldn't have an action to attack. So now the barbarian would have to sit there and hope they get damaged by creatures, or the ranged attacker provokes an opportunity attack, or else the barbarian would end up losing their rage. However, because Charger allows your barbarian to make a bonus action weapon attack whenever they dash, they can better ensure that their rage stays on as a result. Tack on mobile and your default speed becomes 50 feet, and you can cover a whole lot of ground in most combat maps that ranged attackers aren't as much of a problem anymore. As for the downside of this combination, the fact that Charger requires you to use your action to dash means that classes that have the extra attack feature might prefer not to use Charger in the first place, and instead just attack twice for bigger damage and more chances to hit their target. This holds especially true for fighters, since they just gain a 3rd attack at 11th level and a 4th at 20th, meaning it's just better for them to attack rather than dash 99% of the time. However, even then, the main purpose of this feature is to ensure that your character can at least hit once against a creature that normally you wouldn't be able to reach in the first place. In short, this feat combination is both great for closing gaps on ranged enemies and can be useful as a safety net for characters that enjoy a bit of hit and run style of gameplay, making this combo a solid choice for the number 10 spot on this list. And at number 9, we have Remarkable Recovery, with your choice between Gift of the Metallic Dragon, Magic Initiate, and Strixhaven Initiate. Remarkable Recovery is a feat introduced in the Tal'Darai campaign setting Reborn sourcebook that grants you the following 3 benefits for taking it. It increases your Constitution score by 1 to a maximum of 20. When you successfully stabilize while dying, you regain a minimum of 1 hit point, up to your Constitution modifier, and whenever you regain hit points as a result of a spell, potion, or class feature from a source other than this feat, you regain additional hit points equal to your Constitution modifier, minimum 1. As for the other feats featured in the spot, Magic Initiate and Strixhaven Initiate are pretty straightforward. They grant you access to certain spells depending on which spell list you choose. As for Gift of the Metallic Dragon, the benefit we'll be looking at is Draconic Healing, which teaches you the Cure Wounds spell that you can cast for free without expending a spell slot once per day. But you can also use one of your own spell slots if you wish. Essentially, what you're looking for are ways to cast any sort of healing spell into yourself via Cure Wounds or Healing Word, which every feat mentioned provides to some capacity. Both Cure Wounds and Healing Word are available to grab by the Bard, Cleric, and Druid spell lists, while Strixhaven Initiate can provide both of these spells if you choose one of the colleges listed in the feat. Unfortunately, you can't take both Cure Wounds and Healing Word, since both these feats only allow you to pick one first level spell while taking them. But for the purpose of this combo, Cure Wounds is technically the better option because it heals for 1d8 rather than Healing Word's 1d4. After that, the combo is very simple, which is, every time you heal yourself with Cure Wounds, you get to restore bonus hit points equal to your Constitution modifier along with your spellcasting modifier, or whatever stat you picked in the case of Gift of the Metallic Dragon. But if you want a bit more action economy to play with, then Healing Word might be better if you're taking Magic or Strixhaven Initiate, since Healing Word only uses a bonus action to cast rather than an action like Cure Wounds does. What's nice about this combo is that it isn't exclusive to spellcasters, and you can have your fighter or rogue have some emergency healing whenever they need it. Fighters benefit from this combo especially since Remarkable Recovery would also affect their second win feat, giving them a little bit of extra juice as a bonus action. And having access to Cure Wounds allows for them to double up on that healing. Or you can take Healing Word and have a smaller second win to work with. While this combo leads towards the silly side, it's important to remember that Remarkable Recovery only works on yourself, which is another reason why Cure Wounds might typically be preferred, since you'll always be in range of your own healing spells. But if you're going to settle for Cure Wounds, then it might also be preferable to take Gifted Metallic Dragon over the Initiates, if it's available to your campaign setting, purely because it grants you a second bonus, Protective Wings, which allows you to use your reaction whenever a creature you can see within 5 feet of you is hit with an attack roll, and grant them bonus their AC equal to your proficiency bonus, potentially causing that hit to be a miss instead. While it hasn't been mentioned yet, there is a feat that could potentially combo with Remarkable Recovery, the Healer feat. Healer allows you to use a Healer's Kit to restore 1 hit point to a creature that you stabilize, bringing them back into the fight immediately, but it also comes with one other benefit. You can use your action to spend one of your healer kits in order to heal a creature for 1d4 plus 4 hit points, plus additional hit points based on the creature's maximum number of hit dice, or level in the case of players. The creature uses feat on will then be unable to regain hit points from healer until they finish a short or long rest. With Remarkable Recovery, you just gain an additional 2 or 3 hit points depending on how much you're willing to bump up your constitution when making your character for this combo. To put this into perspective, if you decide to maximize your constitution score over any other stat using the standard array, and you put your 15 in constitution as well as your +2 stat bonus for creating a character, you'd end up with 17 constitution. Taking Remarkable Recovery, however, grants you +1 to your constitution, which you can then use to boost to 18 for a +4 bonus. But if we assume our character is 8th level, which is the earliest most classes will be able to take both feats, then using Healer on yourself would restore 1d6 +4 +8 +4 hit points, or a total of 1d6 +16, or an average of around 19 hit points, which is actually kind of respectable for a once per short rest healing. This is comparable to a 4th level Cure Wounds, which would probably heal for around 3d8 +4 hit points, or an average of 22, and wouldn't even cost a spell slot to use. However, the reason why Healer isn't part of the list of feats that Remarkable Recovery combos with is mostly because of how Remarkable Recovery is worded. Specifically, Remarkable Recovery says whenever you regain hit points as a result of a spell, potion, or class feature, but not this feat, you regain additional hit points. It specifies class features, which at first kind of reads as things like Second Wind. However, it implies that feats themselves are considered class features. While there isn't any specific rulings on this, the fact that ability score increases are part of your class features when leveling, and because you're allowed to replace your ASI with a feat, one could reasonably assume that feats do, in fact, count as class features. But a DM might rule otherwise, which is why Healer doesn't really get the same treatment as the aforementioned feats. But it is worth mentioning since this does put it on par with everything else Remarkable Recovery combos with. As for why this combo only takes number 9 on this list, it's because while this combo is very nice to have, it really doesn't bring much to the table as other picks for this list do. It basically requires you to take 2 feats to increase your own self-healing by a minuscule amount. You're better off just taking Remarkable Recovery on its own and let your healers or other source of healing give you the bonus in most cases. And at number 8, we have Magic Initiate and Spell Sniper. We already went over Magic Initiate briefly in the previous part, but didn't really get too specific about what it lets you do. Aside from allowing you to pick a first level spell with the Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, or Wizard spell list, you get to choose 2 cantrips to learn as well, but only one from the same list that you choose with your first level spell. And your spell casting abilities for these spells changes depending on what spell that you're taking from. So if you're taking from the Wizard spell list, use your Intelligence stat, etc, etc. As for Spell Sniper, it grants you 1 cantrip of your choosing that requires an attack roll from the same spell list that Magic Initiate lets you choose from, lets you ignore all forms of cover besides full cover, and doubles the range of any ranged spell that requires an attack roll. The cantrip you select also uses the spell casting ability whatever spell list the cantrip comes from. This combo synergizes in a few different ways. Firstly, taking Magic Initiate helps fulfill the requirement for Spell Sniper by granting you the ability to cast at least 1 spell. The second synergy of this combo is granting your ranged spells the ability to ignore most cover while doubling the range of your spell attack rolls. Another reason this combo works so well is due to the sheer amount of cantrips provided, granting even non-spellcasters the ability to cast 3 cantrips of their choice. As a fighter, you might take Eldritch Blast to cover your range options to replace your crossbow or longbow, since a 240-foot range, up from Eldritch Blast's original 120-foot range thanks to Spell Sniper, is much better coverage than a longbow's 150 feet normal range or heavy crossbow's 100 feet normal range. And since cantrips scale with the player's level, an 11th or 17th level fighter would be able to deal more damage on average with Eldritch Blast than any other range option they might have in most cases. There's also a lot of utility options you can take, such as Chill Touch to stop creatures from regenerating hit points, Thorn Whip to pull creatures from 60 feet away, Ray of Frost to reduce the target's movement speed, or just plain old Firebolt or Eldritch Blast for damage. There are some decent first level spells that you can take with Magic Initiates, such as Ice Knife, Chromatic Orb, or Guiding Bolt. But since you'll only be able to cast these spells once per long rest, the cantrips are definitely the highlight of this combo. While taking these two feats is definitely more beneficial for spellcasters, the fact this can also work extremely well as a supplemental option for martial classes is why this feat combo shines and is worth mentioning on this list. And at number 7, we have Gift of the Chromatic Dragon and Strike of the Giants. Gift of the Chromatic Dragon grants you two abilities that you can use: Chromatic Infusion and Reactive Resistance. As for what they do, Chromatic Infusion allows you to, as a bonus action, touch a simple or martial weapon and infuse it for 1 minute with 1 damage type of your choice, between acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison, allowing yourself to deal an extra 1d4 damage of that type whenever you hit with it. You can only use this ability once per long rest, but for a single combat, this extra damage can be nice to have to beat down enemies faster. And since this extra damage works on a per hit basis, any class that has a way of hitting multiple enemies a turn would benefit off this greatly. Reactive Resistance, meanwhile, grants you the ability to use a reaction in response to taking acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison damage to give yourself resistance to that type of damage. Fortunately, you can use this reaction a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, which provides you with a pretty solid amount of damage mitigation that also scales as you level up. Moving on to Strike of the Giants, this feat allows you to select one of various benefits that you can give yourself whenever you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack or a ranged attack using a thrown weapon once per turn, and have a number of uses equal to your proficiency modifier that recharge after every long rest. There are a lot of options for you to choose from when selecting this feat. But aside from Fire Strike, they all have one thing in common. They deal extra damage and have a secondary effect attached to them, which all have a saving throw DC equal to 8 plus your proficiency bonus, plus either your strength or constitution modifier. Cloud Strike lets you deal an extra 1d4 thunder damage and gives you a chance to become invisible to the creature only, following the rules of the invisibility spell. Fire Strike gives you a flat 1d10 extra fire damage. Frost Strike deals 1d6 extra cold damage and has a chance to reduce the creature's speed to 0 until the start of your next turn. Hail Strike deals 1d6 damage with the weapon's type and has a chance to make the creature fall prone. Stone Strike is 1d6 force damage and can push the creature 10 feet away from you in a straight line. And Storm Strike deals 1d6 lightning damage and has a chance to cause the creature to have disadvantage in all of its attack rolls until the start of your next turn. The synergy between these two feats is quite simple. They give you a lot of extra damage to play with. If you're in a big combat and want to squeeze out as much damage as possible, then being able to give yourself extra damage from Gift of the Chromatic Dragon while also giving yourself an extra, say, 1d10 fire damage every turn for the next 3 turns because of Fire Strike is a really big damage buff. With extra attack, you can basically deal an extra 2d4 plus 1d10 extra damage each turn this way, which is an average increase of around 10 damage. And if you want to sacrifice a bit of extra damage for a bit of utility from the other giant strikes, you can also just do that instead. It is worth noting, however, that you can only choose one of the benefits when you take Strike of the Giants. Meaning if you take Fire Strike, you're pretty much stuck with it forever. What's even better about this combo is the fact that you can eventually take another feat based on whatever Giant Strike benefits you took. For example, if you took Stone Strike, you'll then get access to Keenness of the Stone Giant, which comes with half an ability score increase of your choosing between Strength, Constitution, or Wisdom, allowing you to increase the chosen score by 1 up to 20. You also gain access to Cavernous Sight, an ability that grants you 60 feet of dark vision that stacks with your own dark vision if you already have it. Finally, you also gain a bonus action ability called Stone Throw that you can use any number of times equal to proficiency bonus and is considered magical with a throwing range of 60 feet. This attack requires you to make a ranged spell attack whose spellcast ability is reliant on whatever stat you've chosen to increase with this feat. The rock deals 1d10 force damage and has a chance to make the creature fall prone if they fail a strength saving throw. However, because these upgraded feats either replace an attack or give you ways to deal damage that don't require you to make weapon attacks, these can actually create anti-synergy with your build if you're using Gift of the Chromatic Dragon, since the extra damage from Chromatic Infusion only works with whatever weapon you imbue. However, if you're not planning on turning on your Chromatic Infusion, then these extra giant feats might actually be pretty useful as a general day-to-day option to have, since they can be used for efficiency times per long rest. And if we had to choose between any of these feats, Soul of the Storm Giant probably has the most synergy with Gift of the Chromatic Dragon, since it allows you to use your bonus action to create a 10-foot aura that lasts until the start of your next turn, or until you're incapacitated. While the aura is active, you gain resistance to lightning and thunder damage, and force creatures to make attack rolls against you at disadvantage. Also, creatures that start their turn within the aura have a chance to have their speed halved until the start of the next turn if they fail a strength saving throw. What's great about this feature is that you gain a huge defensive boost in the form of 2 resistances, one of which we can't normally choose to resist with reactive resistance, while also lowering the chance that you'll be hit with attacks all as a single bonus action, meaning you don't really need to worry about foregoing attacks like you would with Ember of the Fire Giant, which lets you emit a burst of fire within 15-foot radius sphere of yourself, even though there might be situations where even that would be preferred over an extra 1d4 fire damage. But to summarize the synergy, basically you want to use Gift of the Chromatic Dragon and Strike of the Giants to give yourself a big uptick of raw damage, preferably during a big important encounter. And while the feats to unlock from taking Strike of the Giants are pretty good on their own, they're completely optional for this combination since they don't really add much to the synergy itself. And while this feat combo is good for increasing your damage, the reason it only stays at number 7 on this list is because you only have a limited number of uses of either feat per long rest, which unfortunately vastly limits how and when you'd want to use them. And at number 6, we have Dwarven Fortitude and Durable. Dwarven Fortitude gives you +1 Constitution and allows you to spend one of your unspent hit die in order to heal yourself whenever you take the dodge action. The healing is equal to the number rolled plus your con modifier. You can then combine this feat with the Durable, which also increases your Constitution by 1, and increases the minimum amount of healing you get from spending hit die to regain hit points up to twice your con modifier. For example, if you're a rogue with 14 Constitution, you have a +2 Constitution modifier. So whenever you spend hit dice to restore your health, you roll a 1d8 + 2. With Durable active, if you roll a 1 for a total of 3, then you heal for 4 points instead. That being said, this feat combo does 2 things. 1, both of these feats combined grant you a +2 to your Constitution score, raising how many hit points you have by 1 per level, regardless of what your con score is at 18 and below. The second thing is that this combo makes 2 relatively mediocre feats into something that you can use more actively. However, the best way to use this combo is by playing a monk or another similar class that allows them to take the dodge action as a bonus action. Doing so lets you take your action to attack enemies while also healing yourself with your bonus action, while also granting yourself the normal benefits of the dodge action, so long as you have key points and hit dice to spend. And if you really want to make this feat combo shine, there's an uncommon item in the game called Preemptive Wound Closure, which doubles the healing you receive whenever you roll hit dice to restore hit points. So if you're a monk that happens to have an 18 Constitution when taking these 2 feats, the minimum you can roll when taking the dodge action would be 8 hit points because of Durable. And with the Wound Closure, the minimum bumps all the way up to a whopping 16 hit points as a bonus action. And since the earliest you can have these 2 feats is level 8, this gives you at least 8 hit dice to work through, assuming you're not saving any for short rests. But what keeps this combo from being any higher in this list is the fact that it's kind of restrictive and requires a few too many things to pull off that not everybody might want to do. Firstly, Dwarven Fortitude is locked behind being a dwarf. The second thing you want to do is take a class that can allow you to take the dodge action as a bonus action, such as a monk. And while having the Wound Closure does make this combo better, this isn't a list of feats that work well with magic items, meaning we have to take this combo for what it is without magical items. However, the synergy is definitely worth noting. In short, this is a fun combo that gives you a decent amount of self-healing and can work well on a monk that uses a bonus action to dodge, or anyone that finds themselves nothing to do with their action for that turn and might want to regain hit points from dodging anyway. And at number 5, we have Resilient and Warcaster. Resilient is a simple feat that raises any one ability score of your choosing by +1, while also granting you proficiency in saving throws with that chosen ability. For the purpose of this combo, however, we'll want to take Constitution. As for Warcaster, this feat grants you advantage on concentration checks for maintaining spells, allows you to cast spells while having both hands occupied, and lets you use your reaction to cast a single target spell that costs 1 action whenever a hostile creature provokes an opportunity attack from you, rather than making a melee attack. The synergy between these 2 feats grants you one very important boon over anything else: easier to make concentration checks. You see, when you take damage while concentrating on a spell, you have to make what's called a concentration check in order to continue sustaining that spell. To make this check, you make a Constitution saving throw against a save DC equal to 10, or half the damage you take, whichever is higher. Aside from Artificers, Barbarians, Fighters, and Sorcerers, no other classes have innate proficiency in Constitution saving throws, and out of those 4 classes, Artificers, Sorcerers, and Eldritch Knight Fighters are the only ones to make better use of concentration checks. That said, this is where Resilient and Warcaster come in. Resilient would allow you to add your proficiency bonus to your concentration checks, while Warcaster would allow you to be able to make these concentration checks with advantage. The end result is a spellcaster that can maintain a slow or haste through even the harshest combat environments, since they'll be more likely to maintain their concentration through sheer determination. There's not really that much of a downside in taking these 2 feats purely for better concentration checks, since this benefits an entire spectrum of characters. Spellcasters. You can even benefit from having Warcaster because it allows you to have a shield out while casting spells for an extra +2 AC at the very least. further increasing your survivability as either a backline caster or a more mid to frontline Gish or Magus-like character like a Hexblade Warlock. And that's not to mention the ability to cast single target spells whenever a creature provokes an opportunity attack from you, meaning you can use the spells that you're actually good with, like Shocking Grass or Toll the Dead, to attack a creature rather than the weapon that you're not good with. This combo sports a really strong synergy while granting additional benefits to spellcasters with little to no downsides, which is why Warcaster with Resilient is perfect for this list. At number 4, we have Elven Accuracy and Squire Solamnia. Elven Accuracy is a feat you can take as long as you're playing an elf. It increases one stat of your choice between Dexterity, Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma by 1, and lets you reroll 1 dice of an attack roll you make whenever you have an advantage on an attack that uses one of the stats associated to this feat. This effectively means, while you have advantage on an attack roll that uses one of the aforementioned stats, you can effectively roll 3 times and take the highest rather than rolling twice. So if you roll a 1 and a 19, you can reroll the 1 to see if you can roll a 20, but still take the 19 even if you don't. This helps you ensure that you hit your target by allowing you to avoid natural ones more effectively, while also being a good way to fish for critical hits by rolling more dice. And combined with Squire Solamnia, this creates a reliable way to proc your Elven Accuracy on your terms, as Squire allows you to, once per turn, cause a weapon attack roll against a creature to have advantage, dealing an additional 1d8 damage bonus on hit. You can do this a number of times equal to proficiency bonus per long rest, however you only expend use of this feat if you manage to hit the target in the first place. Squire also allows you to mount or dismount something at the cost of 5 movement speed, which is a nice bonus but not necessary for the combo. There are 2 glaring issues with this combo that keep it from being high on this list, however. The first problem is that Squire Solamnia can only be activated on weapon attacks, which basically means that, for the purposes of this combo, only applies to ranged weapons and finesse weapons. So you can't give yourself advantage on a Firebolt, Inflict Wounds, or other spells for the purposes of proccing your Elven Accuracy through the use of the feat. The other downside is the fact that Squire Solamnia is not restricted to fighters, paladins, and characters with Knight of Solamnia backgrounds. It's also one of those feats that is part of its own campaign. So access to it is either limited to the Dragonlance campaign that it comes from, or homebrewed into your own campaign in some way. Maybe as a feat given out through exceptional service to the throne, for example. However, being able to turn a situational feat like Elven Accuracy into a more active and reliable feat by giving yourself advantage whenever you want is an amazing synergy that is worth talking about and worth taking the 4th spot on this list. And at number 3, we have Sentinel and Polearm Master. Sentinel is a feat which grants you the 3 following benefits. Creatures you hit with opportunity attacks have their speed reduced to 0 for the rest of the turn. Creatures will provoke opportunity attacks from you even if they take the disengage action before leaving your reach, and whenever a creature within 5 feet of you makes an attack against a target that isn't you, while also lacking Sentinel themselves, you can use a reaction to make a melee weapon attack against that creature. This is considered one of the more powerful feats in the game, as preventing creatures from retreating or making space is a terrifying prospect for a player to have, since it means that creatures that don't have a means of teleportation or ways of avoiding opportunity attacks, such as through the use of flyby, are just forced to take on the Raging Barbarian with no chance to get away. This especially holds true if you're facing any kind of ranged attackers that want to put a lot of distance between them and any melee attackers, since ranged attacks have disadvantage whenever threatening creatures is within 5 feet of them. It's also worth noting that the third benefit from this feature that lets you take a melee weapon attack against a creature that is attacking someone other than yourself is one of the few reliable ways a melee-based rogue can proc sneak attacks more than once per round, alongside opportunity attacks and readied actions. Meanwhile, Polearm Master grants you the ability to use your bonus action, whenever you take the attack action, to make a melee attack using the opposite end of the polearm, and deals an additional 1d4 plus the ability modifier for the primary attack as bludgeoning damage. But the second benefit is much more important for this combo, as it allows you to, while wielding the aforementioned weapons, to make an opportunity attack to creatures coming into your reach. The way this combo works is fairly simple. First, you equip yourself with either a glaive or a halberd, which both have a reach of 10 feet. Then you position yourself between a hostile creature and one of your allies to help ensure that you're the target for the creature. Then, as soon as they move into your 10-foot range, you hit them with your opportunity attack, reducing their speed to 0 for the rest of the turn, and stopping them in their tracks before they can even advance any further. And if that creature doesn't have a weapon with reach or any other form of range option, then they're just screwed for the rest of the turn as they can't attack anything. This combo is insanely powerful because it basically allows you to have a threatening aura of danger that would make any melee-based creature terrifying to engage in. Normally, creatures tend to move around creatures by maintaining a 10-foot distance to avoid provoking opportunity attacks from that creature as they make their way around you to your backline. However, because of Polearm Master, the effective range that a creature would have to move around you to maintain a safe distance from you is now 15 feet, which also increases the amount of movement the creature would need in order to reach your backline, because now they have to take a much longer route to get there. Another useful thing that this combo does is, if that creature decides to risk entering your weapon's reach, you can stop that creature much sooner since it allows you to make the opportunity attack as soon as they enter it, rather than waiting until they try to leave your reach. Overall, this feat combo synergizes almost too well with each other, as it provides you with a means to stop a creature from retreating or even approaching you in the first place. You essentially become a deadly aura pain and suffering for anyone that even thinks about approaching you. Unfortunately for your melee-based enemies, they can't hurt you without getting closer. And if they choose not to approach, this just gives you the opportunity to move closer and trap them in an unwinnable situation. Since now if they want to leave, they have to try to leave your range or stand their ground and fight. There's very little to no downsides of this combo, unless you count playing a character that doesn't or wouldn't use any of the 4 weapons featured in Polearm Master as a downside. And both feats are good enough to stand on their own without bumping heads when combined, which is why this combo takes such a high spot on this list. And at number 2, we have Squire Solamnia, and either a choice of Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master. Squire Solamnia we already went over, but for a quick reminder, what it does for this purpose of this combo is it allows you to, once per turn, give your weapon attack roll advantage and extra damage a number of times per day equal to your proficiency bonus. Sharpshooter and Great Weapon Master both do different things, with one notable exception that we'll be focusing on for this combo, which is you take a -5 penalty to your attack roll with either a ranged weapon or a weapon with a heavy property attached to it to deal an extra flat +10 damage to whatever you hit. The purpose of these two feats is to essentially forsake accuracy for more damage. This is where Squire Solamnia comes in, as it allows you to both declare Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master while granting yourself advantage on that attack roll to try and mitigate the accuracy loss of both effects, while also granting you its own damage bonus on hit. With Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master combined with Squire Solamnia, you're looking at an extra 11 to 18 weapon damage once per turn, and a flat +10 if you decide to swing without the benefits of Squire Solamnia afterwards if you have an extra attack. And that's not to mention the other benefits of Sharpshooter and Great Weapon Master either. Sharpshooter also allows you to ignore all forms of cover except full cover, and removes the long range penalty of your range attacks that have disadvantage, effectively giving your longbow a full range of 600 feet with no issues at all. Meanwhile, Great Weapon Master allows you to make another melee weapon attack as a bonus action whenever you either score a critical hit or reduce a creature's hit points down to 0. In short, this feat combo synergizes with itself, with the only downside being that you can't spam Squire Solamnia due to only being once per turn and having charges. However, being able to help mitigate the accuracy penalty of Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master on demand, while also granting a little bit of extra damage on hit, is incredibly useful for keeping up damage with your high damage spellcasters. It's also worth mentioning that, out of the two feats, Sharpshooter synergizes a little better with Squire Solamnia than Great Weapon Master does, simply because you can use it in combination with another feat feature on this list, Elven Accuracy. This is because Elven Accuracy works for attack rolls that use your dexterity, which most ranged weapons use, but not your strength, which all heavy weapons use. This basically means that, at the cost of -5 to your attack roll, your chance to hit skyrockets because you now have 3 chances to hit your target instead of 2. Squire Solamnia is a very flexible feat on its own, but when combined with Sharpshooter and Great Weapon Master, it turns these two high risk reward features into more of a medium risk, even higher reward type of deal, making it a perfect combo for this list. And for our number 1 feat combo, we actually have a mix of 3. Lucky, Second Chance, and Bountiful Luck. Let's start off by explaining what Lucky does. Lucky is a feat that grants you 3 luck points that you can spend to influence your dice rolls. These points are restored at a long rest, and the way they work is whenever you make an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can spend 1 point to roll 1 additional d20. Once you do that, you can choose which of the d20s to use for the roll. You can also do the same to attack rolls made against you. And while it's not exactly a common occurrence, if Lucky is used more than once on a single roll, such as by another creature that also has a Lucky feat, and then they just cancel each other out and you take whichever the roll was originally. This feat is considered one of the best feats in the game alongside Sentinel due to how much influence Lucky has on a game. 3 times a day, you can effectively force rolls to roll with advantage, or make an enemy attack roll with disadvantage with the added benefit of not having those rolls count as either. This basically means that even if you have advantage on a swinging throw, for instance, you can still spend a luck point in order to roll again. But with one major difference that sets it apart from other feats and features, which is you choose which d20 you want to use. So if you instead had disadvantage on a saving throw, you can actually spend a luck point to roll another d20 and pick whichever of the 3 d20s is actually higher. This is confirmed through a Sage Advice tweet where he was asked if the disadvantage is used with Lucky if they get to choose between all 3 dice, to which lead designer Jeremy Crawford replied, "That's how the feat works," but goes on to acknowledge that Lucky has been on the radar as a potential problem, which would become true as Lucky has since been nerfed in one D&D playtest, which is a topic for another time. Now that Lucky's been explained, let's go over the next 2 feats for this combo. Both Bountiful Luck and Second Chance are halfling feats which also influence dice rolls in some way. Second Chance, firstly, provides you with half an ASI that allows you to increase one side of your choice between Dex, Con, or Charisma by 1. But the meat of this feat lies in its ability to use a reaction to force a creature to reroll an attack roll against you if they hit, but only once per combat. After that, however, you regain the uses feature at the start of initiative every combat, along with its normal recharge rate of needing to finish a short or long rest. Meanwhile, Bountiful Luck works a bit differently than Lucky and Second Chance by giving you the ability to spread your luck to other party members, allowing you to use your reaction to let one ally you see within 30 feet of you benefit off of your own Lucky racial feature, not to be confused with Lucky Feat, letting them reroll a natural 1 from an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, and using the new roll. There is one downside to this feature in that, once you use this reaction, you can't benefit from your own Lucky racial feature again until the end of your next turn. The racial feature, called Lucky, is exclusive to halflings, and allows you to reroll any natural ones you make that's from an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, forcing yourself to roll a new roll. This is the same benefit that you can give to your ally via Bountiful Luck, but it doesn't cost a reaction to do, and isn't once per turn, meaning that you can use this anytime you roll a natural 1, except for whenever you actually use this feature to reroll something. Now, if it isn't obvious what this synergy of this combo is by now, don't worry, you can always reroll your insight check by using the various feats you were just told about, because that's exactly what this synergy is all about, re-rolling and influencing dice. Rolling dice is the most important part of all tabletop games, and D&D is no exception. Dice are inherently inconsistent by nature, so being able to roll dice after dice not only increases your chance of success on whatever you're rolling for, you're also making your rolls a lot more consistent by retrying for success. You can use your lucky racial to reroll a natural 1 while having disadvantage on saving throw against a fireball. And if that doesn't save you, then you just spend a luck point to roll another dice and pick the highest result anyway. If a creature lands a critical hit against you, you can use your reaction from Second Chance to force them to reroll the critical hit. And if they still hit or land another critical hit by some miracle, you can spend a luck point to have them reroll that attack again. And heaven forbids that creature have advantage in the first place, which further increases your own chance of rolling a low number for them that you can then choose to have them to miss their attack or even critically miss if you want to put salt in the wound. And if you happen to lose your lucky racial feature by using your reaction from Bountiful Luck, you'll still have a way to re-roll because everything all comes back to lucky, whether it be from the racial feature or the feat itself. As for why this feature takes number 1 spot on this list as opposed to other synergies, part of it is because of how much influence you can have over a game because of this combo. Unlike with synergies like Sentinel and Polearm Master, which greatly influence combats, Lucky mixed with Bountiful Luck and Second Chance influence the entire game in a huge way. We talked about Squire Solamnia with Sharpshooter and Great Weapon Master and how Squire Solamnia allows you to essentially grant yourself advantage on demand and how strong that is. This feat combo does exactly that, but on a much grander scale. One might say that the Lucky feat on its own is the primary reason this combo synergizes so well, and you'd be right. Lucky's impact on games is the reason why it's commonly known as the most powerful feat in the game, to the point where some tables even ban it from their games. As for its impact with this synergy, Lucky covers the immediate weakness of Bountiful Luck and Second Chance by covering the fact that these two feats require reactions to use, while Lucky does not. There is one glaring flaw in this strategy, however, and that is the fact that Bountiful Luck and Second Chance are both locked behind playing as a halfling. However, this might actually be a blessing, as any creature with access to this combo is already a terrifying prospect. But because the Lucky racial feature is also exclusive to halflings, not only is the halfling the only one that can use this combo, they were also the only ones that be able to make use of this combo to its full potential. There's a reason why Silvery Barb shouldn't be a first level spell to the eyes of many, and that's because influencing dice rolls is extremely powerful. So combining as many ways to influence your rolls as possible just becomes ridiculously powerful. And if you're a spellcasting halfling that's also decided to take Silvery Barbs along with this feat combo, your DM might actually just want to burn your character sheet. Alright, and that's the list. Honorable mentions go out to the Crossbow Expert and Sharpshooter combo, as that gives you a potentially very hard-hitting bonus action at early levels, and was only left off because we already went over a better Sharpshooter combo. What are some of your favorite combinations of feats that either did or didn't make this list? Or do you have any ideas for future videos just like this one?